we have a unique guest with us today, and it's Gaelyn Whitley, and she actually was the great-granddaughter of the founder of Hollywood. And first, when I met her, I was like, founder of Hollywood, big deal, blah, blah, blah. But when I actually did some research and really saw what happened, whom the founder was, HJ as they called him, and really learned a lot more about him, it became an incredible, interesting, fascinating story and message that actually God ended up using. And stay tuned, because when we're starting to really look into this, I think you're going to see the same as I had to experience. Now, Gaelyn, thank you so much for coming to be with us today. It is an honor to have you on the show.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I love sharing my great-grandparents' story and my own story as well.
Now, how did Hollywood actually start? Where did it all begin?
Well, my great-grandfather worked for the Rock Island Railroad, and so he traveled across the United States starting homes. So he had over 100 towns that he started, and he came to California, and he happened to run into my great-grandmother. They fell in love in California, and on their honeymoon, they rode out to the hills, the foothills of California, to Hollywood, and they were standing up looking across the view because you could see all the way to the ocean, and they decided that they would build a town there. And so
wait a minute. You don't decide to build a town. You usually decide to build a house. Was his vision pretty big?
His vision was big. He built, I'm not sure how many by that time, but he did, before he got to Hollywood, he built 100 towns. So that was what he was as a developer.
100 towns?
Yeah, and his crowning glory was going to be Hollywood. He was there, he envisioned all the things it could be, standing on the hill. And the way he came up with the name Hollywood, your viewers might like to know, is a kind of a cute story. They were standing looking out, and along came a man, and he was riding in a wagon. He was Chinese, and he didn't speak English too well. So he got out, he bowed down, and in a nice Chinese accent, he said, "Up early, work hard, Hollywood." Because he was hauling wood in a wagon, and my great-grandfather went, "That's it, I'm going to name the town Hollywood." And Holly will represent my roots in England, and wood for Scotland. And so he decided that, and while they were on their honeymoon, he made a deal with Mr. Hurd. They did a handshake, and he bought 500 acres in the heart of Hollywood, like where the Dolby Theater and the Academy Awards are done now, currently.
Now, I saw some pictures of that, actually. And when you see the very first moment Hollywood is being founded, it looks quite different as it looks today, doesn't it?
Right, it was basically lemon orchards. It was farmland, and so he had this vision. He put in Sunset Boulevard, which is quite a famous street, and he knew that to build a town, you needed to have a hotel and a bank. So when you sold the land, there's somewhere for your customers to live while they build their home. So the first thing he built was the historic Hollywood Hotel on the corner of Hollywood and Highland, and he did a bank. But what really made him, so this is kind of, he's laying out this groundwork for this wonderful town.
Yeah.
And he knew that you had to have an industry to keep your town thriving. And he was looking, and what, lo and behold, came along? Movies. And he realized the potential, because he could kind of see in the future, I call it. I guess God gave him wisdom.
Now, he wasn't a Christian at the time, right?
He wasn't, but he had a lot of tragedy in his early life, and he attended church, but I think he probably prayed, and maybe things didn't go as he planned, and so he kind of
Now, you're saying there's some tragedies in his life. What happened?
Well, when he was a young boy, his siblings played in a pond of water, and they caught cholera, and they died. Oh. So they died, and then when he was 18, his parents both died in a tragic train accident. And if that wasn't enough probably to crumble most people, he got married, had a young toddler child, and his wife and child burned to death in a house fire.
Wow.
And so with that, he goes off to work for the railroad, kind of going from one town to another, kind of to avoid life. And then he meets my great-grandmother and falls in love, and
starts right there.
Right, he starts right there. And originally he goes away and he's breaking it off and he's not going to connect, but love is strong. And
love is very strong. And you know what? This is just one of those stories. You're like, did you have any idea that was what HJ was all about, the founder of Hollywood? And today's show is about reaching your full potential. And HJ did reach that full potential. But how did all that start? And why don't we take a look at this? If you'd like to be part of Love Life TV, of what we do, the Barb Marshall Show, we would love for you to contact us. If you have a story that needs to be shared, if there is something that God has done in your life and you believe the world needs to know about it, why don't you contact us? 855-836-1100 or go to our website, BarbTV.org. God wants your story to get out, just like he did that in the Bible. Many, many different stories happened. The blind got to see. Jesus walked on water, and miracles happened all over. Or there might even be different ways. The way God has touched a loved one, helped you in your needs, or even fixed your marriage, or helped you through a really hard time. We would love to hear from you. Contact us again, 855-836-1100. I want to tell you a little bit about Ransomed. And Ransomed is a book I wrote with a study guide that talks about my story. And it has quite a bit in it. It actually starts with a prostitute. Do you know there's actually prostitutes mentioned in the Bible? What is it? Why God put that story in there? And what were the 3 things that Rahab the prostitute shared with the spies that went into Jericho? And what was a huge, huge encouragement even to them. And my book, Ransomed, actually has 5 different women in the Bible. It talks about Rahab. It talks about Naomi, who went from bitterness to joy. It talks about Martha, and it talks about Hannah. And Deborah, who fought a battle, who stood up for what God wanted her to move forward with. And you know, this book actually will empower and encourage you to thrive in Jesus. I'd love for you to find more information about it. All you have to do is just to contact us, 855-836-1100, and or just go to our website, loveyourlifeministries.org. You just saw an amazing clip. I'm like, did you have any idea? And did you notice those pictures in the beginning and the development of Hollywood and the tune, of course, the famous tune that we all love? You watch it, you smile, you love, and you just enjoy, because Hollywood has brought so much fun into this world, especially with the media. Did your great-grandfather had any clue that this would come out of what he started?
I think he did. He actually pursued the Hollywood people to come to his town, and he was fortunate to meet the Horsley brothers, and they made a connection, and he offered his land, because back then everything was silent and outdoors. He offered his property on Hollywood Boulevard and Whitley Avenue to do a test run, and they did it, and he said, come stay here in Hollywood. And they were the pivotal company that really brought all of Hollywood to Hollywood, because they had special cameras. He connected with the right people. It was like a God-ordained thing, because really media is such a good tool for teaching. Like with the internet, it's just, I don't know that he saw where it would go exactly, but it's just wonderful. Night or day, you can listen to the gospel, you can go on your computer. It's just wonderful. It's evolved into something more than we can imagine.
Yeah, no, and I totally agree with that, but because we're in media ourselves today. Right. However, there are people that are going to argue you on that and say, well, there's nothing Christian today in Hollywood. How would you respond to that?
Well, I think Hollywood has moved towards it. I'm very active in the Hollywood Chamber and with movie people, and there are new movies that are upcoming that will speak. I think the thing we need to do as Christians, as when there is a good Christian, like the Passion movie or whatever, we need to go and vote with our dollars. And I think we've stood back and go, oh, Hollywood's not good. Well, everything has good sides and bad sides. We just need to tap the good side. As I told you about my great-grandfather, his motto was, those who say they can and those who say they can't are both right. Be one that says you can. So the same thing with Hollywood. Pursue the dream. That was what he was as a dream maker. He
Wow.
made dreams come true. He developed really San Fernando Valley, Reseda, Canoga Park, Van Nuys. He brought the cotton industry. He just had this vision that you can do anything you dream of. In fact, his friends coined the saying, if you give H.J. Whitley a bag of lemons, he'll make lemonade, or basically he made Hollywood.
Wow.
So he was an amazing man. He saw no obstacle to stop him.
He just went for it. You know, I'm looking at it. He was a guy that didn't see the glass half full. He saw it full to the rim,
And
basically, and going over the top of that. So that is really, really cool. Now, his life wasn't always easy, and most of his life he actually was not a Christian. Tell me a little bit. How did that develop? How did that change? He
lived by Christian ethics. So he was always. If you read all the things about him, he was always honorable. He gave people free rent. Part of his business partners, when the selling of land kind of went bad, like we just had, his business partner said, let's foreclose on everyone. He said, oh no, let's give everybody a chance. So he was a morally good, sound man, but he just kind of had reservations, and because he could do so much, well, really it was a gifting of God, but he did do it.
He kind of did not need God.
But he really did, because you don't ever get that gifting without
Yeah.
God. But because he had all that, he just could proceed on, and he just kept working. But God came to him, and in the night when he was sleeping, he woke up and he went outside, because sometimes he couldn't sleep, and he had an experience with God. God pretty much said, your time is getting near the end. Like, he was in his 80s. You have a choice. You either have to take me now, or I wasn't there with him, but it was kind of that aha moment. I need Jesus. And he became a Christian. And it was probably the most miraculous thing, because he and my great-grandmother had conflict because he worked so much, like typical people
He was a
today.
workaholic.
Right, and the family balance was not so good. And at the end of his life, when he let go and let God and stopped carrying all the things and trying to protect his family from harm and needing to work and just letting God, he had the peace that we all look for.
And that peace, that peace that you're talking about here that is just such a valuable piece. And that peace she's talking about is when you ask Jesus Christ to actually come into your heart and believe what he has done for you is an amazing feeling. And you're like, oh, get over it. And I was like, really, if you really think about it, when you have dealt with so much and struggled through so many things, and even if life seems good, even if it all seems to fall in place, you can hear that H.J. at the end of his life realized there was something missing, and that missing piece was Jesus. And how is it that you can get to know this Jesus? Well, it's as easy as A, B, and C. God is simple, and we make it so often more complicated. Ask Jesus to come into your heart. Pray to him. Believe that Jesus died and gave himself for you, for the things you've done wrong in life, and confess the things you've done wrong. And when you do that, that is that peace that H.J. was talking about, isn't it?
Yes, it's just something you can't describe, because I became a Christian when I was 17. I was on a Greyhound bus, which seems like an odd spot. I was driving from Cal Poly home to visit over a break from college, and I just had this thing I needed to give my life to God and let him use it. And I didn't know where he was going to take me. And it's an amazing journey, because I've written a book, and they're writing a script for a movie, and I'm writing a second book. And
I'm going to talk about
it's
that
just
book
amazing
just a little
where
bit
God
later.
takes you.
It turns totally around.
It does.
And here H.J. starts Hollywood, and it's all together. And I almost think, I just want to read this to you, because I got across the scripture in the Bible, and you might not get out of it the way I just did it, but it says in Matthew 24, verse 14, this gospel of the kingdom, and this is Jesus talking, this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in the whole world as a testimony to all the nations, and the end will come. And there are Christian movies that are also made in Hollywood. There are Christian movies that are made in the media, and we actually get to share, like the Jesus movie, all over the world. So I wonder, when Jesus put this together, when he said this, he said all over the world. Do you think media was part of that?
I think it was, because at the end time they say we see him coming, and I'm just thinking everyone's sitting at their computer, iPhone, whatever. And at the time when I first read it as a child, I thought, how could that possibly happen? But it will happen. Everyone will know it. I'm like getting goosebumps thinking like, ooh, that he will come. Yeah. And
I often don't even call them goosebumps. I call them God bumps.
Yes, whatever. Yeah.
So,
And I think that's why it's so important that we share our love with Jesus to people. Like we don't like preach at them. We just tell them how marvelous and wonderful and how loving and the peace you get, like I said, that H.J. looked for his whole life. He couldn't find it being wealthy. He couldn't find it in movie stars. He only could find it in Jesus.
Yeah.
And that's all we can all do is find it in him. He gives us.
And that's that peace that he's talking about his kingdom coming. Yeah. So now I want to find out a little bit more, because he was one of those men that had it together and did well and moved forward, that actually basically did not need God. But before we do that, we will be right back. I want to tell you a little bit about Ransomed. And Ransomed is a book I wrote with a study guide that talks about my story. And it has quite a bit in it. It actually starts with a prostitute. Do you know there's actually prostitutes mentioned in the Bible? What is it? Why God put that story in there? And what were the 3 things that Rahab the prostitute shared with the spies that went into Jericho? And what was a huge encouragement even to them. And my book Ransomed actually has 5 different women in the Bible. It talks about Rahab, it talks about Naomi, who went from bitterness to joy, it talks about Martha, and it talks about Hannah, and Deborah, who fought a battle, who stood up for what God wanted her to move forward with. And you know, this book actually will empower and encourage you to thrive in Jesus. I'd love for you to find more information about it. All you have to do is just to contact us, 855-836-1100, and or just go to our website, loveyourlifeministries.org. If you'd like to be part of Love Life TV, of what we do, the Barb Marshall Show, we would love for you to contact us. If you have a story that needs to be shared, if there is something that God has done in your life, and you believe the world needs to know about it, why don't you contact us? 855-836-1100, or go to our website, BarbTV.org. God wants your story to get out, just like he did that in the Bible. Many different stories happened. The blind got to see. Jesus walked on water, and miracles happened all over. Or there might even be different ways. The way God has touched a loved one, helped you in your needs, or even fixed your marriage, or helped you through a really hard time. We would love to hear from you. Contact us again, 855-836-1100. We're talking about H.J., who was the founder of Hollywood, and with me is his great-granddaughter, Gaelyn Whitley, right now. And it's been fascinating to listen to you, Gaelyn, because here, tell me a little bit about his characteristics. Tell me a little bit more about this man we all are kind of wondering about.
Well, he was an amazing man. He could envision anything. He never felt there was a limit. Like, for example, he went to Egypt, saw the cotton fields when he was in Egypt. He goes, this is great. I'm going to take it back to California and we'll raise cotton. So because he was friends with Teddy Roosevelt. So he was an amazing man. He ran the Oklahoma Run. There's just so much I can't even tell all he did. But he had this vision. He brought the cottonseed back. He got diplomatic relations to bring it back. He went to plant it, and all his business partners laughed at him and go, it's not going to happen. And there's a picture of him standing when the cotton's high and ready to be harvested, and he's just smiling.
Smiling away.
Going, all things are possible. Yeah, you just, if you tap your inner spirit, it's there. I mean, he wasn't a Christian, but he did read the Bible. He was Episcopalian. He did go to church every Sunday because he just knew you should do that. So he kind of had the standards set by his parents. That's why I like the verse, teach your child when they are young, and they'll not depart when they're old. Well, he was really old, but he didn't depart. So I guess that's the whole key for parents. It's the hope that we have. If we do a good job when our children are young, they'll be successful. But he just envisioned all kinds of things. For example, he came up with the first electric lit sign in Hollywood, which eventually they put up the Hollywoodland sign. But his business partner took the idea. He said, my land's not selling. And H.J. goes, why don't you put up a Hollywoodland sign? to sell land, and it's our famous Hollywood sign. So he just always thought he invented telemarketing, which I don't know that's so popular now, but at the time they hadn't had it. He did rapid transit. He had the red car put down the middle of Hollywood. He planted 10,000 trees. He was environmentally correct. Yeah, it's just he did everything.
So what is it that makes you so passionate about this? You actually wrote a book.
Right.
So, and I would say you're writing a book that is like centuries old almost, you know, that's the way it feels. What brought you to this?
Well, my mother saw the heritage. I'm not sure why, really, as my father's family, but mothers talk to daughters, I guess. And she said, someone needs to tell this story about this amazing man, because I think there aren't that many people that stay true to themselves, like have a moral character, they're ethical, and they live their life the best they can. He wasn't perfect in every aspect, but he was a good man. He was a kind man. He made mistakes, because we all do make mistakes, but...
Yeah, so your mother basically encouraged you to write the book.
Yeah.
And if my mom would have told me, Barb, write a book, which I have, I would say, are you kidding? No way. No way.
That's what I said.
You know, I'm not gifted. And the English right there, you know, all that stuff comes to mind. But why did you write it?
Well,
why was it you?
I actually thought my sister was an English major. I tried to get her, you write it. And then my nephew's an English, everybody, you're better at it. But I think I had this passion, but now I can see the passion was really God put the passion in my heart, because I have an idea where my past's going. It's not open totally. It's things I would have laughed. I mean, potentially I could win an Academy Award if things go well. I laugh at it still. I don't know that will happen, but he opens doors, and it's not for that purpose that he opened. That might have been sort of what drew me there, but Hollywood needs God as much as everybody else. I always hear people saying poor people need him, but everybody needs him.
Yeah.
The poor, the rich, the middle class, man, woman, child, everybody.
I love how you said that. God needs all, Hollywood also needs God, and we all do basically in one way or another. Now, when you wrote your book, what is the most special part of that book for you?
I think because I'm a person who does a lot of things all at once. I write a book, I'm making a movie, I'm getting my master's, I've been a realtor, I've worked in community service, I work at homeless places, I work at the soup kitchen, I collect, right now I'm part of Dress a Girl around the world, I sew dresses. I'm just and I'm thinking, where did all this come from that I modeled after him?
Yeah. Yeah. So you're just kind of like him. But what is the key part for you in that book itself? What touched you the most?
I think it's the thing I said at the beginning, I can. He gave me the vision, I can. I was not connected to Hollywood and the doors have opened. I can do lots of things. All of us can do things if we have Jesus as the center of our life.
So what is it, if you could have your wildest dreams met, if you would want to say, I can, what is it that you would want to do?
Well, the new book that I'm writing is a revolutionary style book. It's probably coming out in January. And one of the pastors at my church said, make your writing for the world, not just a Christian book. And everybody always asks, why do bad things happen to good people? And this book has the answer that God gave me, but it's biblical. And I think if people can grasp it, it will change their whole view of what Jesus is, how he works, how we need to interact with him.
Together, yeah.
Yeah, it's part, he's done it, and we need to do our part. And I think, and then we combine together. And like I always said, like, one person alone can't do it, but I think
many work. Doesn't God say the three strings together?
Right.
Now, if people want to get more information about what you do, do you have a website? Where can they go?
I do. I have it's called thefatherofhollywood.com. As far as the next book, it's just being edited, so I'm not sure if I'll end up opening a new website, but they probably can always find it through thefatherofhollywood.com. The next book is going to be called Not Alone, and it's an awesome book. It's already won award for the first chapter. Like I say, God wrote the book.
Well.
Yeah, because I'm like you said, my mother said write a book. I go, oh, No,
And
I
look
can't,
at what
yeah.
God used that when
Yeah.
you answered and you looked at the glass full.
Right, I
And
did.
overflowing, it went from there. Gaelyn, it was a joy to have you on the show. Thank you so
Thank you for
much
having me.
following God's dream and making
Right.
it happen. And one of those great quotes, one of the things I love to quote that Jesus said is, I came to have abundant life, or I want to give you abundant life. And if you just listened to H.J., the founder of Hollywood, to his great-granddaughter, the lesson that you got from him is that when he realized, when he had it all, at the end of his life, that there was still a void, and that was Jesus. And he acknowledged that and turned to that. And you can do that too. Gaelyn did that, and what I want to challenge you with today is not just to say lay back, not just to sit, not just to pray. I want to say go with God, turn to God, and make it happen, whatever God has put on your heart, whatever passion is there. No longer sit back, take the steps, move forward, and do something, because that's basically what you're telling me. And God wants you to be all you can be. And one way you can do that is by stepping into new territory. And a story that comes to mind is the story of Joshua. You know, they get to the promised land after slavery. They are so distraught with what they see because they see giants, and the fear of moving forward is so big. So they actually do not enter because of the fear of the giants. They fear what's around them more as God himself. So they walk away, and then God says basically, no, you're going back into the desert for 40 years. Almost 40 years later, they're again at the edge of the promised land. They get there, they're ready to enter, and again, 2 spies are sent in. And while those 2 spies secretly were sent in, they get a message from God through a prostitute, Rahab. And he tells them 3 things. She tells them 3 things about God's reputation that they still remembered from 40 years earlier, about what God can do, and that the people are more afraid from God than anything else. And that gave them the key to move forward and to enter the Holy Land, no matter what giants were getting in the way. And I want to challenge you. Are you willing to step in the territory, into the new land that God has put in front of you? And I can tell you, it will become an adventurous, exciting, promising life, and you get to dream like H.J. did. And you will have things you have never experienced before. Why? Because when you go and God is in it, he is going to help you. Call me. I want to pray with you. If you want to connect, 855-836-1100. Or go to our website, BarbTV.org. Remember, no challenge is too big for God. He wants to help you and move forward with the passion that God has given you.